Yo guys, welcome to RenderRam. My name is Vieku and today I'm going to be talking about this anomaly in Corona's bump. So many of you know I've been using F-Storm for a long time and I started also learning Corona at some point. And when I started learning Corona, I noticed this one thing that started to give me headaches and it would get worse and worse. So I kind of learned how to fix it. So let me show you what I mean. So as you can see, I have three maxes here. So one max has F-Storm, the other one has Corona, the third one has Scanline. Let me show you how my scenes look like. So I literally have a camera, I have one light, and I have this sphere, and that's pretty much it. So all materials look like this. I have a basic bitmap, which is plugged into diffuse. I have my noise map, which is plugged into bump, and I have my reflection turned on, it's set to 1, and I have my glossy to 1. Now, glossy to 1 is basically just to pronounce the effect that I'm going to show you. As you can see here, I've set my noise size to be very small, and I have that one light, which I showed you, and it's just, you know, shining here, and I used my noise instead of glossy. I just used noise to disperse the light across the surface. If you take a look in F-Storm, how does that work? So if I zoom in, you can see the dispersion of that light. You can see it's basically hitting the green area here. The more I zoom in, the dispersion generally looks absolutely the same. So if I go and zoom out, you can see it also looks the same. So it's hitting the green area here. And so the more I zoom out, you can actually see this whole highlight affecting the green area here. Does that seem logical to you? Is that a normal behavior? Now, if we check the same thing in Scanline, as you can see, this is it's the same logic. So I have my highlight, it's all driven by noise. If I zoom in into my scene, the highlights look like this. It's just a pretty normal highlight with bump on it. If I zoom out, that highlight looks absolutely the same. So nothing has changed. It's just there because we defined the amount of noise, and that's just how it works. Now, when we switch to Corona, things start to get funky. So this is our scene. As you can see, the highlight dispersion, it generally hits also the green areas here, just like in F-Storm, just like in Scanline. So everything is generally good there. But look what happens when I zoom out. It doesn't hit the green anymore. It just hits the red. If I zoom out more, now it only hits yellow. And if I zoom out more, it feels like there is no dispersion at all. Now, let me check my material here. So I have my bump, and my bump is set to value of 4. If I zoom in and if I change this to 0, it's just gonna look like that little light box that's shining the light. The more I turn it up, you know how bump works. If I set it to, let's say, 50, I'm gonna get an abnormal results, but the more I zoom in, those results start to look a bit more normal, to the point where bump is disabled again. So no matter the value I put here, look, I'm gonna set the bump to 99, the material is completely ignoring the bump. Now, if I start to zoom in, you are gonna see the bump 99 kicking in, but let's turn it back to 4 where it was. I mean, look at it. So the highlights are dispersing to here. The more I zoom in, that dispersion gets heavier and heavier and heavier. So do you know what this means? That means that basically any object that you have in your scene, if it's close to the camera, it's going to have one bump behavior. If it's far away from the camera, it's going to have another bump behavior. So in this example, I created this kind of table, and it has that, you know, those black rough surfaces that kind of feel matte, but they do have a structure. And the point was, you know, client wanted to see all those little details, you know, when you do a close-up, and I was like, yeah, this is how they look. And you know, I was very happy to, you know, to what I saw. As you can see, it's nicely dispersing the light, etc. So I went out to render my full image. And when I zoomed out, I got this. Now look at it. So from this point, my bump is completely turned off. And the more I zoom in, the bigger it's gonna be. This little thing actually forced me to create different materials for different cameras. So for example, if I would do a product shot, you know, I always have to take some close-up detail shots, etc. I would have to have one set of materials for my total shots and one set of materials for my close-up shots. Okay, let's take another example. So here I have a nice room, and it has, as you can see, it's a little bit noisy, but it has a nice white walls. And when you zoom in, you can actually see some sort of detailing happening. This is because I wanted to have a slight bump on my walls. I was like, yeah, this looks good. I like it. And then I was like, okay, I'm gonna render it. Now it's in 1000 pixel resolution. So I'm gonna render it 3100 pixel resolution. So I was like, yeah. After rendering it for some time, I noticed that my walls are not nice and white and soft with the slight bump. They actually look horrible. Look at these. Like, these are like dirt flakes happening. Because when I was tweaking my scene, the whole thing generally looked like this. It was nice. I mean, look, now when I zoom into the wall, Look at this. So I started digging and I started researching like what could be the reason for this behavior. And at some point I even had a word with one of the developers of Corona. He told me that this is Corona's filtering. So every bitmap in Corona has its own filtering. Every bitmap in general in any rendering engine has some sort of filtering on it. And it turns out generally that the filtering that is affecting the bump is obviously maybe a little bit too strong or something. But because of it, it saves you tons of render time. This is actually, I believe this is one of many reasons why Corona is actually so fast for a CPU rendering engine. Now, take a look at this. So how do you approach this thing to fix it? I'm gonna go to this scene and I'm gonna enable my noise map here. So you have the blur section. You also have that blur section when you click on the Corona bitmap. You have it here, it's under the filtering. And that section, so that blur of 1, it can go to a minimum of 0.01. That's the bare minimum. Now, look what happens. If I set that noise to 0.01, my image looks like this. And now when I zoom, the whole dispersion just looks consistent. No matter how far I go, it just looks identical. It looks the way it should look. The more closer you go, nothing will get too strong. It will all stay nice and consistent, and it just generally works. If I crank my blur to 1 at this point, we are getting this. The more down you go, the less that filtering is gonna kick in, and you're gonna get a much nicer result, or a much more consistent result. Now, this whole thing with the blurring, it does come with a cost, and the cost is increased render time. So I wouldn't recommend using this de-blurring technique on literally everything in your scene, because I believe you're gonna get a gigantic render time. But use it, you know, where it's needed, because for example, I do a lot of product shot renders, and I have, you know, like one camera that is a total shot of a product and a couple of cameras that are like super close-up shots. So for me, you know, I had a lot of issues where I would literally have to create separate materials for each set of cameras because they would be showing a completely different thing. But discovering this de-blurring thing basically saved my life. So the main question is, who needs this? Who needs this little tweak? Well, if you are rendering just one image of a scene, you basically don't need it. If you have multiple cameras, where some are gonna be close to some objects, like super close or something, you generally would want to use this because you're gonna get a consistent result. If you are still rendering a single image, and let's say you have a hall and there's like a white wall next to your camera, you're gonna see a super strong bump next to your camera, but far in the distance, let's say the hall goes to the living room. In the living room, you're not gonna see the bump because it will completely fade away because of this. But if you want to have it, you can reduce this number and you are gonna have consistent bumps everywhere. So the point of this video is, be careful with your bumps. But before we finalize this video, I'm not the only person who's in the ho 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 mood. Evermotion is also, look at this. They are giving away a couple of cool models that you can use to light up your renders in Christmas spirit. Look, they are giving these 4 Christmas trees for free for you to use in your renders. These look absolutely awesome. Not only that, they have a pre-order if you want to order their newest ARC models volume 268. These plants look really cool. I hope you're gonna grab some of these. So thank you Evermotion for sponsoring this video. Bye.